This week on The Record, 6 months since tragedy twisted through St. Louis, how does Mayor Kara Spencer account for the damage? What's the price tag of a devastating natural disaster? The government reopens, but at what cost? And who could cash in on the deal to end the longest shutdown ever? It's all coming up right now. Welcome to The Record. I'm Mark Maxwell reporting from Studio A while our new set is under construction. Most mayors mark their major milestones centered around themselves and their own elections. First 100 days, first year in office, or first term. But as St. Louis Mayor Kara Spencer learned the hard way, pomp and ceremony quickly gives way to deadly disaster and pressing emergency. Instead, she's marking a more sobering spot on her calendar, 6 months since the deadliest natural disaster to strike St. Louis in decades, the official date on Sunday. And now, in an interview you'll only see on The Record, Kara Spencer sits down one-on-one in her office on City Hall's second floor, where I pressed the mathematician mayor on her numbers. Has she counted the cost to rebuild a tornado-torn city? We're facing the 6-month mark from a major, devastating disaster that destroyed thousands of homes and buildings in North St. Louis. Let's talk some numbers real quick on the price tag of the damage. I think early estimates were $2 billion in total. And we saw some reporting that 30, maybe 50% of those buildings were properly insured, meaning 50 to 70% were uninsured. Is that about right?
I think about 70% are underinsured. That's right.
So there's like a variable there. We don't know how much of the insurance could recoup that full $2 billion, but let's say it was $1 billion to $1.4 billion in uninsured losses.
Yeah.
From there, the state's kicking in $100 million. The city's kicking in $30 million.
Well, the city has already allocated, I mean, if we're talking about just the damage, that's one thing, but there's a whole host of things that are necessary for the response. The city has already allocated and spent over $30 million in just the response. That's in overtime and the immediate debris removal and a whole
host of things. So you're not just counting Rams money there?
That was out of the general fund. We've also allocated and have $30 million of the interest rate from the Rams funds, $24 million of which is already under contract.
How much of that is actually spent and out in the community now?
Well, the $24 million of contract, much of that is already going out in the community. What has actually been invoiced for is not exact. I don't have the exact figure right now.
About $3 million?
No, I think it's closer to 5, but that's a little bit misleading because, those contracts that are signed, much of that work is already underway. Whether we've gotten the contracts and processed them, we're working through those things. But those contracted funds, that $24 million is activated and is out in community and working to assist our residents in need.
So there are a number of different pots you can draw from. There's the FEMA money, there's the insurance that covered some, the city general revenue fund, the Rams money. Yeah. If you're solving for X, how much is the remaining outstanding cost of repair?
That is a question that we're still digging into. So much of it is still yet to be determined. I mean, even residents with insurance policies are still not completed with their work. And so, much of it's going to depend on whether or not we're rebuilding brick structures, how the rebuild is going to move forward. We're standing up and working with community to really develop and drive what that rebuild looks like. And that's going to really determine what the end price tag is going to be for the broader community. Where we're going to get the money for it, that's probably going to be your next question. We're standing up a lot of programs right now for home repair. And so if you haven't already applied for that, stlrecovers.com is a good place to start to make sure that you're already in line to get some of those funds that are going out the door for home repair. But the rebuild is going to be a years-long process. We've got some funds in the Rams and other pots that we're allocating to this, but generally speaking, following a disaster of this size, the federal government comes in behind with community development block grant funds, disaster relief funding for the rebuild. And we're going to be relying on our federal partners to help make sure that St. Louis gets its share of those disaster relief funds and the community development block grant funding.
Yeah, I think a lot of the city's been watching intently your reaction there because you've said a few different things. You've been, one, complimentary of bipartisan leaders in the city and the state and federal government on their reaction to the tornado. But you've also been a vocal critic of the inaction or the slow action of the federal government. What is that line, that tightrope that you're trying to walk there?
Well, I mean, I think it's clear to some extent. I mean, our partners here on the local side, both at the federal delegation piece and the state partners in the governor's office, have been great partners in helping us achieve what we can get from the federal government. On the other hand, it was clear to us in the immediate hours, days following the tornado that FEMA was not going to come in and run the response as it did in Joplin and in other major disasters. So the federal apparatus in of itself is not the same as it was even just a year ago. The level of staffing and the level of support, what FEMA was able to do as far as organizing and providing food assistance, immediate shelter, that sort of thing, those were responsibilities that we had to take on. The fact that the Army Corps of Engineers is not owning the debris removal and demolition project, that is now delegated to the state of Missouri, is something that's new. It is not the case that's not what we saw in Joplin, for example. So
some leaders might have taken that information and been more vocal, criticizing the Trump administration. How has your calculation been about your posture? How would you describe your posture toward this president?
I would say my posture in general is one of first and foremost relying and leaning into collaboration. And that's something I think that's been very, very beneficial to St. Louis, our collaboration with the state, with our federal delegation, and really leaning into those relationships to best serve our community. I'm going to continue to do that. I think that's something that we as a nation can be looking to, collaborating with one another, really finding those commonalities. And I think the St. Louis region would benefit from better collaboration, coordination, and working across political boundaries.
How then do you account for big cuts or reversals where the president takes back a promise that Congress gave? Take that battery plant in North City that just today officially said the deal is dead. The Trump administration cut nearly $200 million in federal funding. There go all the jobs. There go all the construction that could have come to the North Riverfront. Why do you trust that collaboration with a chaotic administration is going to be fruitful for the city?
Well, I believe that the collaboration that we have been a partner to has been beneficial thus far. When I think about what funding has gone out the door and is helping residents, I'm looking at the $52 million in direct aid that FEMA individual assistance has provided St. Louis residents. That is the direct result of collaboration. We would not have that funding without that. The $100 million that the state of Missouri has come to the table with, the $180 million that FEMA has allocated to the city of St. Louis for demolition and debris removal. Those are funds that would not be here without those collaboration and coordination. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Am I disappointed that the battery, some of these other investments that FEMA hasn't done more? Sure. There's room for both, but I will continue to lean into collaboration where we can because it has borne a tremendous amount of fruit that we would otherwise not have. And our residents deserve to have every penny that we can get out of our partners. We need every penny, and we need even more than that. I know it's not enough, but it is better to have those partnerships than to go without.
So 6 months in, I'm doing some math on the back of a napkin here. You said $180 million, $30 million from the general revenue fund, $30 million from the Rams money, $100 million from the state. That's about $340 million, rough math.
There's more than that. So I'd say we've got $37 million or so on the local side out of general fund. That was an immediate response. $30 million in interest funds from the original tranche of the Rams funds. We've got another 3.4 that we expect to pass the Board of Aldermen tomorrow. It already passed through the Board of A&A yesterday. We've got $9 million in last year's surplus that is also part of that funding package.
Even still, all that adding up, we're not even halfway toward
we've got,
paying for the
and then
recovery.
we've got additional community development block grant funds and other funds that we redirected, ARPA and other funds that are that have already been redirected to the tornado response. So on the local side, just for the city of St. Louis, we have allocated or contracted $120 million. We've got another $100 million from the state of Missouri and $180 million from FEMA. That is for the debris and demolition, and another 52 direct to residents. So I'm looking at over $450 million that we have allocated to the response so far. And again, you pointed out, we're maybe looking at $2 billion of damage. So we know this isn't enough, but this is a good starting point. We're focused right now. I talked a lot in the very immediate aftermath about being able to triage. We were in immediate response mode.
Sure.
We went into a restore phase, and we're kind of coming back into a bit of a hybrid where we're in triage mode again as we go into winter months. So that's where the surplus funds and the second tranche of interest from the RAMS funds are coming in, very important in the next coming weeks and months as we plan to ensure we have a safe place for all residents during dangerously cold winter months ahead.
You heard her there, the mayor acknowledging winter, forcing her team to triage once more. When we come back, I press her on preparing emergency shelter, cutting down red tape, and kickstarting downtown's sputtering economic engine. Welcome back. The mayor says the tornado recovery has forced her administration into an all-out sprint, and winter could trigger a second crisis for families whose homes remain unsafe. We pick up there in our interview from the mayor's office in City Hall. When you ran for office, I think it's indirectly related. You talked about revitalizing the economic engine of the city, which is downtown. That tax base, that activity can help perhaps restore and pay for some of the tornado recovery off in the future. But you are facing some challenges there. You used to represent downtown, but we see now Peabody Energy.
Still do.
Well, you still do. That used to be, but you understand what I'm saying. You're familiar with downtown. Peabody Energy leaving after 70 years. KSDK, my shop, leaving downtown after 78 years. Thompson Coburn just recently signed a short-term lease. Our sources tell us they're exploring a potential move out of downtown. There are many others. What are you actively doing as mayor? What are your tangible tools to stop the downtown exodus?
Sure. You're right. We have in cities that are successful, the downtown is the economic engine that really can subsidize the rest of the city. And our downtown currently makes up about 17% of our city's revenue. That far exceeds demographically what its average would be otherwise. And so it is very important to the stability of our city and the success, economic vitality of the region. So what we're doing, a host of things. It has been a challenge to balance that with the tornado, but we've been working alongside of those efforts. So the mayor, myself, I engage on a regular basis with our business community. We had some incidents over the summer that were tragic. I made direct, immediate phone calls to some of the building owners in our downtown community to try and shore up confidence in the work that we're doing ahead.
When you were running for this office, you criticized the last administration for not being more prepared for the winter months.
Yes.
You know it's coming on the calendar.
Yes.
Did you give these other businesses and building owners enough time or runway to convert their spaces to expand that housing or shelter capacity? Could you have given them more heads up?
As we talked a little bit about FEMA not running the response, we have been building the response as we go. We are moving heaven and earth right now to get prepared for winter. Earlier this week, we had a bit of a dry run on preparedness and standing up shelters with very little lead time. And that was a fairly successful effort. We had more beds than were needed, and we were able to really demonstrate a constructive work product with a winter task force that we've been convening over the last several weeks to ensure that we have every ounce of capacity that we can muster. And as we go through the days and weeks ahead, preparing for what that looks like, we'll be able to share more with the public. But we are building that out as quickly as possible. We are looking to shore up rental assistance where we can so that families that have need and qualify can go into apartments rather than going into congregate shelter. We're trying to do everything we can to get folks what they need going into winter months. Could we have, as we are moving through this, Mark, I think, one of the hopes is that we can move as quickly as possible. My team is working and learning as we go and working faster and faster each and every day. So being able to open up those shelters earlier this week was a good and successful dry run on how quickly we're able to mobilize some things as we're moving forward. When we started this, our tornado response team, our contracts were taking 60 days to get through. We have been able to get contracts in the last week through in just 4 to 5 days. It is really, we're turning these things around as quickly as possible. The Board of V&A is standing up meetings every 2 weeks now to fast track these things. And, you know, we have a community that's coming to the table with space, churches, a whole host of apartment buildings are making themselves at least available for conversations about how we can partner to provide space in the weeks and months ahead.
Mayor, thanks for your time.
Of course.
A lot more of that conversation with Kara Spencer on our website, ksdk.com, and the rest of it on the free 5+ app. We're back in a moment. The longest government shutdown in American history is over, in large part due to Dick Durbin, the second top Democrat in the U.S. Senate, orchestrating the deal.
Many of my friends are unhappy. They think we should have kept our government closed indefinitely to protest the policies of the Trump administration. I share their opinions of this administration, but cannot accept a strategy which wages political battle at the expense of my neighbor's paycheck or the food for his children.
But what else is in that deal? We found in the fine print one provision that could hand $1 million checks to several sitting senators, including one from Missouri. That Senate amendment says, quote, any senator whose Senate data or the Senate data of whose Senate office has been acquired, subpoenaed, searched, accessed, or disclosed in violation of this section can bring a civil action or lawsuit against the U.S. And this basically stems back to 2022, this retroactive language appearing to cover at least 8 Republican senators, including Josh Hawley. His phone records were subpoenaed during special counsel Jack Smith's efforts to investigate the 2020 election and the ensuing aftermath. Each of those senators could sue taxpayers for at least $1 million. The provision drawing bipartisan backlash.
This bill, which they now call imperfect, contains the single most corrupt provision for legislative self-dealing that anyone in this chamber today has ever voted on.
It does not sound like Senator Hawley will pursue that payout. He told us in a statement through a spokesperson, quote, I think the Senate provision is a bad idea. There needs to be accountability for the Biden DOJ's outrageous abuse of the separation of powers, he says. But the right way to do that, Senator Hawley says, is through public hearings, tough oversight, including of the complicit telecom companies, and prosecution where warranted. All of this shutdown talk coming as Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released 20,000 plus new documents from the estate of the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Those emails mentioning President Trump's name several times. Trump has not been accused of any crime. He's consistently denied any wrongdoing related to the Epstein case, and he's called the whole situation a hoax.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile.
A separate bipartisan effort is calling for the Justice Department to release all the files, and they collected all the signatures they need to force that vote in the House, scheduled for next week.
The problem is this Epstein vote, the record is going to last longer than Trump's presidency. And so what are you going to do in 2028 or 2030 when he's no longer president and you sit in a debate either with a Democrat or another Republican and they say, why should we trust you? You voted to protect pedophiles. That will be a mark on your record forever if you vote against our resolution when we force this vote.
A penny for your thoughts when we come back. After 230 years in circulation, the U.S. Mint just pressed its last penny. The last one struck Wednesday. The penny had a good run, so let's check the record. When that coin was first introduced all the way back in 1793, you could buy a biscuit, a candle, or a piece of candy with it, but since then they've mostly filled our jars or junk drawers. And of course the imagination of orators. A penny for your thoughts. A penny saved is a penny earned. I heard someone once say, if a man wouldn't stoop to pick up a penny, then why would anyone trust him with $1 million? I'm still looking for that first million. But look, not to worry. If you're a collector, it'll be a while before those little coppers go completely out of circulation.
We're saying goodbye to the penny today, but let me just be crystal clear. Like I said, it's still legal tender, and we have over 300 billion of them in circulation, and we want you to continue using them.
The government won't give them to you anymore, but they sure will take them from you. Bottom line, the only coined currency to feature the face of Illinois' greatest son, the nation's most beloved president, Abraham Lincoln, now being purged from our pockets. Eventually, experts say there's enough out there to stay around for the rest of our natural lives. I suppose now I'll have to charge a nickel for my thoughts. Inflation's everywhere, isn't it? All right, that's our show. Until next time, we're off the record.